Hello everyone, I'm Manahasia, and today we are going to be talking about healing the priestess wound of not fitting in. So, when you are a spiritually gifted woman and you carry the gift and burden of helping people transform their lives, of transforming your own life, of alchemizing a lot of the pain and trauma that you've been through into healing and guidance for yourself and others, there oftentimes come attached the feeling or the wound of not fitting in, right? And this is something that we feel quite deeply because oftentimes when you're a spiritually gifted woman, a lot of who you are and many parts of your identity are chastised by society, right? You're someone who's quite unorthodox in many ways. And this is something that we experience from childhood. And this could come in the form of either bullying or just having your hobbies, having your interests being made fun of, or the way that you do things, the way that you've tried to, see through illusions, the way you try to call out BS that exist in systems, in family organizations, and in different places, right? And I think the reason why we can feel this wound so deeply is because for us, we don't ever feel like we're overtly or explicitly doing anything to draw in negative attention, right? This is something that I experienced so much growing up, is that, having people come my way to either project onto me or to try and belittle me in some way, shape, or form when I'm just minding my business, right? And this is why we feel this wound so deeply, is because, like I said, we don't actively do anything, but we tend to have people around us who try to put us down, right? And even when when you think that you found groups or friendship groups or communities that enable you to be yourself, you realize that sooner or later things just begin to backfire, right? People begin to ghost you, or people begin to become envious or jealous of you. And then it becomes that old cycle just being repeated, right? So for me, I remember feeling deeply that I never really fit into anywhere, right? And part of this was due to the fact that, like, my entire being seemed to be very triggering for others for some reason, right? And this is partly because, as spiritually gifted women, we naturally draw out what is hidden to the surface. We naturally draw out things that people have tried to hide to the surface, and this sometimes comes in the form of people's own internal contradictions. This can come in the form of bringing to light the inner gunk that people have tried to hide to the surface quite naturally. So when you're a spiritually gifted woman, you actually naturally trigger others into having some kind of ego death, or you trigger others to see the parts of themselves that they try to hide. And oftentimes people don't know how to deal with that feeling, right? Because it's a very, for most people, it's a very new feeling. Um it's a very uncomfortable feeling. So when they experience this, a lot of times they just default to projecting onto you, trying to make you feel bad for, for offending them supposedly, right? And this all contributes to you feeling like you never really fit in with people, and it's beyond even the effects that we have on others. It goes to different things, like the way we dress, right? Or the way that we speak, or the way that we walk, or the way that we like to express ourselves through art, through creativity. A lot of people find this unorthodox, yet they still think it's authentic, and some people may try to go as far as copying you or just being envious of the way that you do things without ever telling you, right? And not only this, but this wound even goes deeper to how you have lived your life. So, living in the kind of world that we live in today, a lot of people don't understand the purpose of sacred rest, right? Of not always having to be productive in the capitalistic sense, but allowing our bodies and our spirits to go through different phases that help us in our spiritual evolution, but also in the 3D. And this is something that I actually experienced yesterday, which is why I'm even making this video, where I had met someone who, this was a much, much, much older person, an older man who was like in his 70s. And I had met him because he was someone who helped me at, university through a scholarship. And when I met this man, we were speaking and we were talking about, like what my entire experience at university had been like. And I was telling him how I generally like to take breaks and take rest in between phases. And he just didn't understand why. He just didn't understand, the purpose of that. And that for me was a reminder that how I choose to live my life and how I choose to honor myself and my spirit is something that not many people are going to understand, right? Because for other people, it's about this constant need of, being productive. It's about always being in go, go, go mode. Whereas for me, I understand the importance of sacred rest, even though I sometimes do have those internal contradictions within myself when I think maybe I should like be doing more, right? Maybe I should be doing X, Y, and Z because that's apparently what, people like, or that's apparently what I'm meant to do. And this is like a huge part of the priestess wound is not allowing yourself to be dragged down by the expectations of others, and not allowing yourself to be dragged down by the kind of dominant ideas and dominant ways, we're taught that we should live, and going with the flow in our own journey. So for me, that experience that I had yesterday was a reminder that not many people are going to understand the way that we live our lives, as spiritually gifted women, because our lives are our lives are full of magic and miracle. Let's just be honest, right? We often like to talk about the struggles that come with it, but today, as I was reflecting on the event of yesterday, I remember hearing a voice that said that, like, you always seem to remember like the the negative experiences, but you don't pay much attention to the favor in your life. And that's something that was a reminder to me, because there is so much favor and miracles that come with actually having this following our own path and healing through our priestess wound of not fitting in, of feeling like the way that we like to live our lives, our principles, our the way that we view things, that have been chastised. When we're able to honor ourselves and honor our own processes, so many miracles happens and so much magic happens. I have so many stories of this, and I'm sure that you may also have these things as well. But on the outside, our lives and the way that we do things don't make sense to most people. And you have to be okay with that, right? You have to be okay with allowing people to see how you live your life as unorthodox, as different, as strange, right? Because at the end of the day, our lives here are, it's much bigger than, the systems that people want to box us in. It's much bigger than the expectations of others, right? And it's much bigger um than a lot of these ways that have been projected onto us. It's honestly about honoring our own journeys, right? It's about allowing our destinies to manifest, our God given destinies to manifest. It's not about pleasing others, right? And this is something that I had to tell myself yesterday because I found myself feeling a little bit like out of sorts when I had that interaction. He's a very pleasant man. This man was a very pleasant man, and he's helped me so much in my journey for university. Um, but he's also someone who lived in a completely different time, and so much has changed, right? And I'm my own person. So if you're someone who has felt like you've lived life in an orthodox way that has honored your own way of being in a way that has honored how you feel, has honored your needs, as opposed to constantly making decisions that may look good on the outside, that may bring you some form of temporary accolades, but honestly have dishonored you in other ways, that have put you through different kinds of painful processes. And this is something that, like I said, as spiritually gifted woman, you may feel in every single part of your life. Okay, and what I mean by this is when it comes to people's expectations of you in friendships, in relationships, people's expectations of you in many different aspects of your life, there are going to be so many projections, but you have to really honor your own needs. You have to be able to honor your own path, okay? Unapologetically, without 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 paying too much attention to what people are saying on the outside. Because the biggest part of this wound of healing this, this need to fit in and whatnot, is actually you knowing what's best for you. You know that actually I don't want to be constantly in these systems that are draining me. I don't want to live my life in this way. I don't care about these things that on social media that people care about so much, these trends and whatnot. You know that there's a different way of living for you, but at the same time, you know that there's a bigger expectation or a wider expectation that others have of you, right? And oftentimes we can learn to mask. Oftentimes we learn to mask by trying to tap into these mainstream ways of being, right? So the best thing for us to do is to actually heal those wounds connected to this bigger wound of the need to fit in. So that could be, maybe there was a time in your life where someone expected something of you, or people tried to put you in a box, or a time in your life where you really felt unseen, right? So healing this wound has to do with, like I said, you choosing to honor your own path and having so much faith and trust in God and in the process of becoming, okay? Because when you look back on your life, I'm sure there have been many times where you have felt like that that you didn't know how things were going to work out, but they worked out for you anyway in the best possible way, right? In fact, you've beaten the odds so many times that when you do narrate your story to others, they can't even grasp it. They can't even make sense of it because it comes as such a shock. And this is something that I experience all the time when people have asked me about certain things in my life, and I tell them how I got there. They're just like, whoa, okay, like how, right? But that's your path. As spiritually gifted women, we have a very, very unconventional path, and it can be very easy to want to play into the voices outside of us, but we always have to come back within and honor our alignment and feel fulfilled within there, at whatever stage that we may be. So that's it for this video. If you would like to work with me, feel free to have a look at my website, which will be linked in the description box below. feel free to subscribe and leave a lovely comment down below as well, and give this video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video.